I want to do a video here discussing one specific symptom that many people have the first few days they're quitting smoking. And it's one that causes, in many ways, the most grief to people or makes them the most alarmed. And it's a level of disorientation that many people feel when they're first quitting smoking. Now, the reason for it is there is a drop in blood sugar, and when the blood sugar drops, your brain isn't getting fueled correctly. When your brain doesn't get fueled correctly, it's just not working right. In a way, you're not playing with a full deck. There's a whole video that I'll link into the description here about blood sugar effects from quitting smoking, and it'll explain why it happens. But I want to discuss about what the symptom is specifically and the kind of reactions it have. It's just a high level of disorientation where you just don't know exactly what you're doing. Things that should seem really simple, things that are just a real routine normally, they just don't seem to work right. And this is scary when it happens to people because they start to think, oh, this is what they're like as a former smoker now. They're vegetables. And understand the reactions you're having those first few days, whatever they may be, those are not what it's like to be a former smoker. That's what it's like to be a smoker in drug withdrawal. Withdrawal is a very temporary state. One of the best examples I had of this, I had one woman. She came into the clinic and she was just fuming when she came in. It was like on her third day of quitting, and she said when she came in she was a little bit late, and the reason she was late is why she was really so mad. She had actually left her house early to come to the clinic. The reason being she was having a really rough day. She said she was going crazy. She felt if she stayed at home she was going to smoke, and she was trying to think of some safe place to go, and she realized, well, she'll just come to the hospital. When I was doing the clinic at the hospital, she'd come there and that'd be a safe place. Well, that was very logical. And it was during a time when we were having major construction going on at the hospital. They were putting up a whole nother building, and so there was a diminished capacity in the parking lot. So she realized if she came early, she'd be able to get a closer parking place. It was kind of a lousy day outside weather-wise. She wouldn't have to walk out in the elements. You know, she had lots of good logic going here of what she was doing. She was getting out of the house. She was coming to the clinic. She'd get a closer parking place, and she'd get to her safe room, the stop smoking clinic room. So she does. She leaves the house early, and and it was a day that she said nothing had gone right. Everything was going bad for her. But she all of a sudden something seemed like it was going right. When she got to the hospital, she sees a guy get into the car in the first lane in the second spot. So here, where it was a really problematic getting parking all these other days, she's got this prime parking place. And, this was great. So she pulls up behind the car, far enough so he'll be able to get out. And, she's in no hurry. So she's sitting and waiting for the car to get out. Well, he's in the car for a while, and he's not even turning the car on. And she's starting to get nervous, like, oh, maybe he's waiting for someone. Maybe he's not going to go. In the meantime, she sees the car, go around her and takes another spot in the second lane, a few spaces up that she could have got, but she's thinking, this isn't working either. So, but then the car turns on. Oh, okay, so she's going to get this place after all. Well, she's sitting behind him, and again, another car or two comes by, and he's not moving. He doesn't have his lights on, and she's wondering, maybe he's not going to leave. Now it's cold outside, and so she's logically thinking, well, maybe he's just warming up the car, but she's getting nervous, like maybe she's not going to get this place after all. So she's about to leave, and the guy turns his lights on. Well, okay, he's leaving now. The lights are on. He sits there, and it must have gone on another few minutes where he's sitting there with his lights on. Well, now she's getting mad. She's saying, he's just sitting there. She knows he's leaving, and she's kind of swearing about this. She's really angry. Now it's wintertime. It's cold outside. His windows are rolled up. Her windows are rolled up, so no one's hearing what's going on. But she said she's really fuming. She's swearing. She wants this parking place. She's going to get this parking place. Finally, she sees the guy's backup lights come on. But then the brake lights come on, and he's sitting there with his brake lights on. Well, now she's just thoroughly fuming. More cars have passed her by. She's getting really, really upset, but she locks into her head, and this is what she said. I've locked in my head. I'm going to stay behind this car. I'm going to get this place. I'm going to get this parking place. I'm going to stay behind this car. I'm going to stay behind this car no matter what. Finally, the guy pulls out of the space, then drives out of the lane, turns out of the lane. She follows him out of the lane. See, she remembered in this short time period, she remembered she was going to stay behind this car. But somehow in the interim, she forgot why she was staying behind the car. So when he pulls out, she follows him, and then she looks in her rear view mirror. She's turning out a lane, and another car comes in, just very innocently comes and takes the parking place. I mean, she had left the space. Well, now she had to go park 3 or 4 lanes over because of all these people who took the closer in spots, and literally came in a little bit late. And she said, I normally know who I am, I know what I am doing, and again, if this is what I'm like as a non-smoker, this isn't worth it. And I've always said, if the way people felt in those first few days is what it was like to be a non-smoker, yeah, sure, it's not worth it. But it's not. Again, it's what it's like to be a smoker in a withdrawal phase, which is very temporary. So don't get alarmed when these things happen. They can happen. And again, your brain isn't getting fueled. I'm actually going to add one more story in that's very similar. I mean, there were actually lots of stories of people who did things like this. I remember there was one woman who said she was at a restaurant and it was a meal she got over and over again. It was a soup, a bowl of soup, but the bowl was was made out of bread. So you actually eat the soup and then you eat the bread. And she does this all the time. She was eating this thing like weekly. Well, the week of the smoking clinic, she ordered the same meal as usual, and she said she was so out of focus that she just ate the bowl first. She was eating the bread off the bowl, then all of a sudden the soup just went all over the plate. And it was the type of thing, she said, I don't know what I'm doing. I had one time where there was one guy who had told me to call at a specific time. I tried to reach him and he never answered the phone. And when he came in the clinic, he was laughing about why I couldn't reach him. I said, I tried to reach you this time. He said, well, he had a situation where earlier today he was in his car and he found a package of cigarettes in his glove compartment. And he got all panicked. And I remembered what I had said about, if you find, cigarettes, just throw them out right away. Don't have time to think about it. Just destroy them. And he says he's in his car and he's found the cigarettes and he's driving, doesn't know what to do, and he doesn't want to litter, but he just decides no, he's got to get rid of the cigarettes. So he rolled down his window, and then he was thinking he should call me about it, but he realized no, he doesn't need to call me about this. He's just going to throw out the cigarettes. And he said he meant to do it. He meant to throw out the cigarettes, but because he had thought about calling me at the time, he must have had his phone with him, and he threw the phone out the window as he was driving down an expressway. He threw the phone out, so he had lost his phone, and so he couldn't call me about it, and I couldn't reach him. So there's things that people do when they're first quitting smoking. Again, it's a disorienting feeling, it's a frightening feeling, but it's a short-term reaction. You can minimize some of that by trying to keep the blood sugar stabilized. And again, if you read or go through the video on blood sugar, it'll explain, strategically taking juice throughout the day, not waiting for the symptom to occur. These are things that can minimize these effects. May not get rid of them altogether, but make them a little less severe than they would have been. But just with time, those things will improve. The way to avoid ever having to face the reaction again once you do quit, it's a matter of never having to start a withdrawal process again. And all you need to do for that to be accomplished is to, once you stop, to continue to stick with your personal commitment to never take another puff.